तुमच्या इथे आता ते फॉरेस्ट फायरची सिच्युएशन कशी आहे?
It's okay. We are 100 miles away. So, but next week weather is not good. Anyway, the time to start. It is already 3 minutes past 7. नमस्कार everybody. मी आनंद गानू गरजे मराठी ग्लोबल तर्फे आपल्या सर्वांचं स्वागत करतो. गरजे मराठी ग्लोबलचा जो गरजे मराठी इनोव्हेशन अकॅडमी हा जो प्रोग्राम आहे त्याच्यामध्ये आपण वेबिनारची सिरीज घेतो. त्यातली आज एक सिरीज मध्ये श्री समीर सकपाल बोलणार आहेत. ह्या आपल्या उपक्रमासाठी आपण महाराष्ट्रातल्या अनेक कॉलेजांशी जॉईन झालेलो आहोत. त्यांची काहींची नावं जे आज प्रेझेंट पण आहेत त्यांची मला घ्यायला आवडतील. प्रोफेसर सचिन देशमुख जे डॉक्टर बाबासाहेब आंबेडकर मराठवाडा युनिव्हर्सिटीचे डायरेक्टर आहेत इनोव्हेशनसाठी, ते आज आपल्याबरोबर आहेत. डॉक्टर दिनेश पाडोळे आहेत फ्रॉम डॉक्टर GH रैसानी कॉलेज नागपूर. नंतर चारुदत्त मासाडे आहेत KK वाघ कॉलेजमधनं, आणि डॉक्टर यशवंत जोशी आहेत नांदेडच्या SGGS कॉलेजमधनं. त्याचप्रमाणे प्रमोद पाडोळे VNITचे आणि एअर मार्शल भूषण गोखले महाराष्ट्र एज्युकेशन सोसायटीचे आपल्याकडे जॉईन झालेत. सो ह्या आपल्या उपक्रमातर्फे आपण महाराष्ट्रातल्या आणि जगभरातल्या मराठी एंटरप्रेन्योर्सना इनोव्हेशन अकॅडमी तर्फे आपण गाईड करणार आहोत. हा प्रोग्राम अनेक जणांच्या वेबसाईटमध्ये झालेला आहे. अशाच लोकांनी हातच्या प्रोग्रामची सूत्र हातात धरलेली आहे. सो आय एम इन्व्हायटिंग श्री समीर पाध्ये आणि श्री विजय तळळे टू टेक ओव्हर टू समीर पाध्ये. प्लीज एव्हरीबडी स्टे म्यूट. समीर, प्लीज टेक ओव्हर.
Okay, thank you, Anandji. Good morning, everybody. This is Samir Padhe from Silicon Valley in California. Today's our topic is 5G. I'm sure everyone has already heard what 5G is because it's all over us in the news, in the stories. And if you haven't, then it's a perfect place to be because we are going to hear all about the technology, the impact on our lives. Our first session that we did just 2 weeks ago, we talked about Internet of Things or IoT. And 5G is that base technology that's going to enable not just IoT, but literally everything else that we live, play, and work today with. And आजचा आपला मराठी माणूस जो आपल्याला सगळं समजावून सांगणार आहे त्यांचं नाव आहे समीर सकपाळ. He has a flourishing career as a consultant in ICT area. He is a director of consulting in Frost & Sullivan. He completed his graduation from University of Bombay, and then he did his MBA from Arizona State University. And as a consultant, he lives both on technology and business side. And I'm sure we'll get some significant benefit of that today to understand what 5G is going to do to our day-to-day lives as well as from the business impact perspective. So with that, Samir, if you can please.
Sorry, I missed the sequence. Vijay Thalele is going to talk about Innovation Academy, and then it will be over to Samir. Over to Vijay Thalele, please.
Okay. Thank you, Anandji and Samirji. Let me just share my screen quickly. Is it my screen is visible?
Not yet. Yeah. Okay.
Okay. So good morning, good afternoon, good evening to all across the world. आपले सगळे गरजे मराठी ग्लोबलचे मेंबर्स. आणि आता आनंदजींनी सांगितलंच की आपण GMG आहे इनोव्हेशन अकॅडमी ही कशासाठी चालू केली आहे. म्हणजे वी आर ट्राइंग टू प्रोव्हाइड अ इकोसिस्टम to all our Maharashtrian startup entrepreneurs who would like to get mentoring in different aspects. To support this vision, what we have done to start with immediately is we launched a bi-weekly webinar series starting 12th September. So this is the third webinar that is going on today, which is on 5G and its new technologies and new opportunities in 5G. As Samir was also mentioning, we had a session on IoT, Internet of Things, and design thinking over last couple of Saturdays. every Saturday we will be having a session from this webinar series. If you see on the screen, there are on the left hand side, there are technology tracks that we have identified. And on the right hand side, the business tracks that we will be running webinars on. So these webinars will continue for next 2 to 3 months over every Saturday. And we will try to give a synopsis and try to give a overview of different technologies and the business tracks. In the business tracks, we'll cover the business aspects. If anybody who is looking for converting their technology ideas into businesses, these are all the areas that will be required to be thought through when you are looking at starting an enterprise or converting or creating your startup. We also identified some of the thirst areas, but this is mostly, it covers most of the technologies like artificial intelligence, machine learning, AR, VR, IoT, drones, robotics, blockchain, and the domains of renewable energy, genomics, and so many more. So after this webinar series is over, we will plan to start an acceleration program, which will start sometime in early 2021. And this program, so basically this entire webinar series and acceleration program is to support aspiring entrepreneurs. And we are trying to bring in seasoned mentors and coaches all across the world. That's why it's a Garje Marathi Global. So all our mentors have been very successful entrepreneurs as well as successful professionals in their careers. They will be there to mentor and coach the aspiring entrepreneurs. The investor network, while we will look at the investment much later in the acceleration program, but we will also have an investor network so that the entrepreneurs get an idea and get a experience of pitching in front of investors and to get a view on what investors look for in entrepreneurs, and when they fund or when they invest or when they provide venture capital, what do they look for. So all that experience also will be there, and the business ecosystem will also be there. The academic and research network, that is to mostly to see the source of these entrepreneurs. So we are going to work with academic institutions across India as well as across the world to see who are the aspiring Maharashtrian entrepreneurs who would like to be getting benefited from this program. One more thing to convey is this program is completely not for profit. So Garje Marathi Global is a no profit organization. Also, we are not charging in this program anything. It will be completely free of charge to all the aspiring entrepreneurs. This is our way of giving back to the society, wherein we would like to support all the aspiring entrepreneurs. We also will be having incubators from India who will be part of this. We are attached to academic institutions or other incubators. And this program, as Anandji mentioned, has been supported by experts and mentors from Garje Marathi Global in India as well as overseas. And we are looking at supporting this program for aspiring entrepreneurs across the world. We look forward to all the students as well as startup entrepreneurs to take benefit of this program, which will be really beneficial, because today all such programs are available, but all those first generation entrepreneurs who are in the age group of 50, 60, 70, they never had such a benefit of this. So they had to struggle and learn from their own experiences. Whereas today we are trying to provide this so that you can jumpstart your entrepreneurship journey as quickly as possible and with the right frame of knowledge and the skill that you can achieve from these programs. Thank you. I hand it over to Samir Sakpal to take over the program of today's program of 5G network technology and the new opportunities.
Thank you,
Vijay. Over to Samir. Please, everybody stay mute. Okay, Samir, take over.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for the introduction, and happy to be a part of Garje Marathi. This is the first session that I am delivering on 5G, and I hope it is a valuable session for everybody who is consuming it right now, or in the future through other media as well. So let me just pull up my screen before get started here. Okay, can everybody see the screen?
We can see the screen. We can see the screen.
Okay. So just to kind of again give a little bit of a background. So have been in strategy consulting for the last 15 plus years. Mainly driving strategy for telecom and technology companies. So like somebody, I think Samir earlier pointed out that I live on the intersection of business and technology. My core competency is business strategy, but with the influx of how technology is sort of driving it, my role is to help technology companies, telecom companies to drive their growth on the business side, make sure that their technology is kind of seeing that profitability that they wish to see, but at the same time helping businesses on the demand side to understand what technologies are beneficial to them, and how the evolution of technology is something that they can gain from. A lot of us have been hearing about 5G for some time now, and it is sort of the buzzword around around wireless. A lot of people use it synonymously in terms of addressing what their connectivity is. And a lot of us on the call today, on this forum today, might know about 5G, are probably pretty well versed about it, work around it. But there might be a fair bit who are not, and who are still trying to understand what 5G is. So the objective of today's presentation is to kind of lay the foundation in terms of understanding what is 5G. What really is the what does it consist of? What is its value in terms of the evolution of networks to the next generation, and it sort of give a little bit of a primer, so to speak, about 5G. So we will sort of keep it to a very high level, but as we go along the series, we can sort of deep dive into certain aspects of 5G on the technology side. Probably even discuss some of the use cases more deeply, because it's a very interesting area. For me, it is when I talk about 5G, or when I hear about 5G, I'm like a kid in a candy store, and so it's really very interesting for me to know more about it as it kind of evolves. So basically, the first slide here is talking about what are the building blocks of 5G. When we talk about 5G, I think one of the key things that it sort of brings forth is the bandwidth, right? So the network has a very, very high bandwidth. It is supposedly, it is one of the most high-speed networks that we've had till date. It actually incrementally goes beyond 4G in a lot of areas. And so it is something that will drive the adoption of IoT or IIoT, which is industrial IoT, edge computing, etc., more on the enterprise side. So when we look at 5G, I think the play more is for the enterprise than for consumers. And why I say that is because it actually brings into reality some of the things that we've talked about in automation, or driving certain things from from an industrial IoT perspective, or the confluence of what they call IT and OT, which is operational technologies. So you will see a lot of industrial segments adopting these technologies as 5G gets launched, and as it spreads across various geographies. One of the key things that will allow that to happen is the low latency. So 5G is a promising technology that really makes it compelling because of its low latency. So the device-to-device communication or network-to-device communication becomes rather more speedy, and that is required for the reliability of the network, and that is required for the reliability of operations. I mean, if you were to think about it, if I have a connected robotics arm on a process manufacturing unit that is doing its work on the production line, I need to make sure that I have the reliability of the network to support that connectivity. If not, if there is any glitch in that connectivity or if there's any latency in that connectivity, I'm looking at the robotics arm not working that efficiently, the connectivity not doing its job, and hence, looking at, millions of dollars of losses in the production line. So that is something which 5G really addresses from a latency standpoint. Again, like I just talked about the robotics arm, I talked about IoT. That brings into the picture the device density. So 5G is going to be a network which will have potentially the highest device density of connected devices, that we will see or we'll start to see. You'll have a lot of connected devices, not only our usual smartphones and tablets as well as other mobile devices, but we'll have a lot of massive devices that would be connected. We are looking at ports being connected. We're looking at warehouses being connected. We are actually, I was talking to a customer of ours, which is a big mining company in Brazil. And so they are looking at, automating most of their cranes as well as other, AGVs across their mine fields, which will be connected to private 5G networks. So, we are looking at devices which would be, easily around 1 million devices per square kilometers in space. So, that's a really commendable number there of the devices that would be connected. There is going to be increased security as 5G kind of comes along. With all of these devices that are connected, I think what happens is the threat canvas, so to speak, actually increases, and so security companies, carriers, CSPs, service providers are basically looking at securing the networks more effectively, because ultimately there are those antisocial elements who will try and hack these networks, who will try and hack these devices. And again, to go back to the same same analogy that I gave earlier. So if you have a manufacturing unit which is using a lot of connected devices in the process manufacturing floor, if you have a service attack or a disruption of service attack in that space, then you have to face a lot of losses. So as 5G comes along and as it is adopted by all of these enterprises, it is imperative that it is coupled with a high level of security. We will see we'll see a fewer number of cells. And when I talk about cells, I'm talking about microcells or access points required in 5G, because basically the signals will be able to travel faster, compared to Wi-Fi. So, you require less number of cells. So from a CapEx perspective, I think it is definitely beneficial. And I think 5G is going to be one of the most efficient network technologies till date to drive battery efficiency for devices. So it will reduce power consumption and hence sort of will keep the devices powered up for a longer time than the other networks have been doing today. So that's a little bit about what are some of the key building blocks of 5G. Moving on, I think I wanted to spend some time on the key enabling technologies that is making 5G the kind of compelling network technology that is till date. So the first is enhanced mobile broadband, and so I talked about it earlier in terms of throughput and in terms of how the bandwidth is kind of enhanced. So we are looking at speeds which would be more than 100 megabits per second average throughput, which is a huge difference from where 4G is today. And from a peak throughput perspective, we are looking at speeds above 10 gigs or gigabits per second. Again, one of the key elements to drive that connectivity for enterprise applications that would be flourishing because of 5G. When we look at connected cars as an example, when you have completely automated connected cars or self-driven cars, you cannot have the potential of connectivity being unreliable. That would lead to perilous mishaps. And so you need to have a connectivity which has that high level of bandwidth and a high level of reliability and dependability. Having talked about connected cars, we are talking about the other cornerstone of 5G, which is ultra reliable machine type communication. And so I've used the word reliable quite often in the last few minutes. So again, it's 99.99% service availability. So you cannot have anything depending from a enterprise perspective or from an application perspective like connected cars that is running without that level of dependability. So the availability of connectivity as well as the latency becomes of very crucial importance, with these applications, and that's what 5G promises to provide. The massive machine type communication is again, relating to some of these things that we have talked about. One of the things that we are also seeing, or I have been discussing with some of our customers on the logistics side, is how do we automate ports, right? How do you automate supply chain? Most of these warehouses will be driving automated communications, and they'll be doing automated process flows using this 5G communication. Ports would be automated, so the incoming and outgoing of cargo would be automated. The inventory aspect of it would be automated. So you're looking at huge machines that will be driven by by 5G connectivity, and that is what is really happening. I mean, today people are enterprises or manufacturers or oil and gas industries. I pointed out mining earlier. All of these big industries using big machinery, using big equipment, are talking about how 5G will sort of help us automate things, right? How can we drive efficiency, effectivity in terms of production, in terms of being productive, as well as how do we lower costs? And that is going to be the fulcrum of what 5G is going to be able to provide. So these three areas, in my opinion, are going to be the key enabling technologies when we look at 5G from an enterprise play perspective. And I'd like to say that again. I mean, it's more of an enterprise play than a consumer play. Of course, you will be able to receive a higher speed on your tablet to watch your favorite Netflix series, but you're not going to see much of a difference from what you're seeing today while you're doing that. But when it comes to the enterprise side, this is where it is going to make all of the impact. I'm going to pause for a second to see if there are any questions that come up, but we are definitely going to have a Q&A at the end of the session, but just in case. Take a breather as well.
Okay,
so moving on.
There are no questions in the chat, and I have requested everybody to put questions in the chat. So Samir, please carry on.
Okay. So moving on, roadmap to 5G. What's really what are we looking at? I mean, everybody's excited. Everybody's looking at when is 5G going to come, right? I mean, some of your phones today show 5G, but that's basically new radio, or it is an enhancement of 4G. But standalone 5G is what we're talking about. So we are looking at a rollout, or we were expecting a good amount of rollout in terms of standalone 5G happening in 2020. However, that has kind of slowed down because of the COVID situation. Main things were, the deterrents for that not to happen. Number one was the supply chain was hugely impacted because of the COVID situation. I think the second thing is, Huawei, which was one of the key infrastructure providers for 5G, they have come under a lot of heat across North America and Europe. So, that has had Nokia and Ericsson kind of step up in terms of providing that infrastructure. And it's a bit of a ramp up time that they'll have to deal with before they can get all of their ducks in a row. And so there is some delay that we can expect in terms of expansion of standalone 5G But on the right of that screen there, or of that slide, you can see what are the bandwidth and latency requirements for some of the things that are going to start actually showing up rather early in the phase of the rollouts. So you'll have a lot of applications such as sensor monitoring and device control or remote device control, bi-directional control or cloud applications that will see more of an impact of the early days of standalone 5G. But the more augmented applications, autonomous driving or AR and VR sort of applications will be sort of a bit delayed in terms of their their rollouts within the 5G network environment. Simply because I think it's going to be it's going to require more speeds. It's going to require more dependability. It needs a requirement of the network being rolled out in a more expansive manner to be able to make them effective applications. And so it is something that we will see, although it might take some time. When we talk about 5G, where people have already started to talk about 6G, right? So we are looking at a time frame of 2030 for 6G to become a reality. So as we roll out 5G and it starts to take its position in the world across enterprise and consumer applications, people will start looking at what is it that we can sort of take to the next level in terms of the next generation or the next level, next generation of network technology in 6G. And so we can look at 1 terabyte per second of peak data speeds, which is it's going to be a massively a fast and low latency driven network. It'll drive applications such as quantum communications, optical networks, and spectral efficiency, etc. So there is going to be a lot of evolution in that area, and so 5G is going to kind of lay the foundation stone for all of that to happen. So we are very excited about the launch and the availability of 5G as we kind of go along through this year, and most likely 2021 and 2022 are going to be crucial for the launch of standalone 5G. So when we talk about expansion and we talk about the availability of 5G, I think I want to spend a little bit of time on this map here, where we look at how is it going to evolve, how is the network going to be launched. So we're looking at North America being the front runner, actually not the front runner, but along with some of the Southeast Asian countries like Korea and Japan, will be sort of taking the lead in terms of launching 5G. So we're looking at 50 to 60% of availability of 5G across these geographies. Europe will be following after that with about 30% availability, and Southeast Asia around 35 to 40%. As you can see, India by 2025, so in the next 5 years, we'll have about 10% connectivity in terms of 5G availability. But yes, I mean, overall, over the next 5 years, we'll see different geographies kind of starting to take lead with their 5G availability. And so these, when we relate to it, these are the geographies where we'll see most of the enterprise applications of 5G kind of flourishing and evolving as the network itself becomes available. So what are the drivers of 5G growth, right? So we want to kind of see what is it that will drive or monetize 5G. We got to understand that service providers are spending a hell of a lot of money to launch 5G, buying the spectrum, putting together infrastructure so that it is the network itself is delivered efficiently. They have to look at how do they monetize it. That's one of the things that we always talk about with our network, with my network customers especially, is what is going to be their monetizing strategy of 5G. That is one of the big questions they have. How can we build products and services on top of our network that will leverage our network within the enterprise space, but at the same time, it'll give us the opportunity of providing these products and services to our B2B customers. So there is certainly that facet about monetizing 5G, right? How do we recoup back the capex? So increased data traffic is going to be one of the key drivers for 5G growth. We are going to see growing data from various connected devices, and like I said earlier, there will be a multitude of connected devices that will sort of form the connected layer of 5G, and so there'll be a lot of data that is going to be derived from it. So the growing data traffic is going to be definitely one of the key monetizing factors for 5G. So as the data grows, the demand for certain services will also grow. I mean, with connectivity, there will be a great demand for certain level of connectivity or certain services like video streaming. We'll look at, we are going to look at a lot of augmented reality and virtual reality applications growing, especially in the areas of gaming, etc. Not only gaming, but we are looking at now in the context of COVID, we are looking at a lot of AR and VR applications being developed. Let's say in the healthcare segment, where remote monitoring or remote clinics are becoming key because lesser and lesser people want to go to the doctor or are visiting healthcare facilities. So AR and VR are becoming sort of key aspects of some of these other industrial verticals like healthcare. Education, for example, is another one where there's a lot of virtual reality or augmented reality kind of applications that are being developed. So we will see a lot of these coming into play as we go along, and 5G is going to make that a possibility. And so it's also becoming a key driver for 5G in terms of monetization. Mission critical applications. So I just talked about healthcare. You'll see more and more devices or more and more applications in healthcare which are sort of driven by network connectivity. And so as they are mission critical, they would be, of course, the requirement of low latency connectivity is crucial. Reliable connectivity is crucial. And so it becomes imperative that these are working efficiently. And not only in healthcare, but you can look at power, where they are launching a lot of automated applications that will run on 5G, which are not only the upstream part of it, but they're also looking at how do they automate the distribution of power. So things like this will be key drivers for the growth of 5G. IoT connections. So this is one that never stops. It never kind of lowers in discussions. So we are going to see a tremendous growth in terms of what IoT applications are coming into play. Like I said earlier, it's not just consumer IoT, but it is more, the terminology is IoT or industrial IoT. So whether it is manufacturing or oil and gas and some of these other verticals that I talked about earlier, a lot of these devices, and they all become a part of the gamut of IoT, right? So Internet of Things across various devices is going to be on the rise, and that's going to be a key driver for 5G. We are expecting to see 6.5 billion connected devices or categories, connected device categories by 2025. So it's going to be a huge impact. And so a lot of companies are looking to monetize that aspect as well. So these are some of the examples that I wanted to share in terms of how 5G will grow in terms of monetization. So when we talk about 5G, I think one of the other terminology that has become popular is 4IR, or the fourth industrial revolution. And so what exactly does it mean, right? I mean, what is the fourth industrial revolution? So when we talk about it in the context of 5G, I think what we're going to see is pretty much all of the industrial verticals that we think about are going to be driven by automation or by technology. When we look at banking and finance, there'll be the example that I've pointed out here. For example, there'll be drones for insurance investigations. You're in an accident, hopefully not, but there has to be an inspection of what is the damage to the car, etc. So the insurance company is going to send probably use drones to go and investigate as to or take a video report of what the damage is. There are other areas, transportation and logistics I talked about earlier as well. Connected vehicles such as AGVs, whether they are in a warehouse or in a mining environment, cranes in construction, etc. All of these are going to be, likely to be automated and connected through 5G. Most of these wide area, industrial verticals like mining, etc., who operate on a large scale of land or large field, are expected to also launch private 5G networks. I mean, we do have private LTE today, but that kind of augments itself when 5G comes in, and there'll be private 5G LTE, which will basically make sure that all of these devices on that field are connected, are reliably operating, etc. Entertainment, that's a big one. I mean, we are now looking at entertainment in a completely different light post-COVID. People are not going to be going to theaters for a while, I would imagine. And so what does that do? So, we are looking at broadband support broadband support with a backhaul of 5G to basically engage in futuristic entertainment applications and solutions such as AR and VR based video, real-time streaming to mobile devices. All of this is going to be a 5G driven. Manufacturing is one of the key industries that we are seeing this already happen today. So, when we talk to most of our service provider customers or solution vendors, the one thing that they want to know is what's really happening in manufacturing. They want it's sort of the low hanging fruit per se in today's times for all of these people to sort of get into, because manufacturing is one of the early adopters of technology, of automating technology and connected technology. And I think 5G will be a crucial part of what they are doing over the next 5 years or so in terms of their roadmap. Similarly, retail, I think with retail kind of being driven more as a remote experience, it is going to be driven by a lot of technology. I think AR, VR will also play a big part of that in terms of creating that virtual world of retail for you, so that you have that feeling of being in a store while actually not being there, but giving you the same experience. So all these great applications are coming along. Energy and utilities, again, something which has always been sort of an adopter of some level of automation through SCADA and RFID kind of applications, but I think that's kind of going to be augmented as well. In terms of site monitoring, in terms of smart grids, so predictive maintenance, etc., are going to be key areas that are going to be driven by 5G and by the connectivity of it. So these are some of the industrial revolutionary things which we put in the bucket of the fourth industrial revolution, and will be basically realistically driven by 5G as we go along. And with that being said, I wanted to share some quick examples in terms of use cases for 5G. And so one of the things we are seeing is with the health insurance industry. They have started to talk about automation and using technology to drive some of their processes. And one of the key things is going to be how they sort of do this with 5G. So, we're looking at information sharing. I think one of the key areas that insurance companies today grapple with is how do we share real-time information between three of their main contingents or main contingents, which is the patients, the healthcare providers, and last but not least, the agents or their employees. So they how do they do that? How are they looking to do that? So IoT is going to play a big part in that. Analytics and data are going to be a huge will have a huge pie share of that information sharing. aspect. When we look at simplification of intelligence, I think they are looking at virtual customer-centric engagement. Again, cloud and cybersecurity, AI and machine learning are going to play a key role in that. Big data analytics, of course, will drive that intelligence for members. So they're looking at being more proactive in terms of how they approach their relationship with their members, with their agents, as well as with the healthcare providers. But they're also looking at how do we make this a smarter relationship? So making sure that the rate of or their wellness levels are high, and sharing that information in terms of based on the data that they'll receive by analytics. Behavioral. So they are today doing that, and they will kind of sort of enhance that as they look at some of the behavioral aspects of how patients should be monitoring themselves. There'll be a digital concierge, health bots, and they'll use gamification as well to drive some of that behavioral aspect of their patients, so that they have to deal with lesser insurance payouts. So that is their end goal, as to how do we reduce our payouts, at the same time make sure that our members or our patients are making sure that they are keeping their standards of wellness as well. And how do we approach that? How do we become sort of the guiding force behind them, keeping their wellness at check? And then, of course, last but not least, they're looking at disruptive business models from a pricing point of view, from a structuring point of view. They're trying to get away from the legacy insurance systems, and they're being proactive in, and it is competitive. I mean, each one of them is trying to be better than the other to provide those disruptive models to their customers. Similarly, I want to kind of give you a brief, sort of simulated environment about how the construction site of the future will look, right? So you will have these drones which will be surveying the site, which will be monitoring the construction or surveying the progress of the construction. We'll have telematics, which will be reducing downtime, which will help in reducing downtime through construction equipment automation. Automated security systems will constantly be monitoring from a security perspective. Will be monitoring the construction site and pretty much acting as virtual guards in that environment. Data, of course, will be the key driver of what's coming out of each of these connected devices, and making sure that the efficiency is driven with the use of that analytics and that data being gathered. Similarly, service robots are going to be available for some of the processes and some of the so to speak labor work that is done on construction sites. So this is how we are looking at the evolution of various. I just wanted to kind of share this to give you an understanding of how some of these areas or some of these industrial verticals will evolve with the evolution of network technologies, and how we'll start to see the benefits of that as we kind of go along, and we start to consume some of these as end users. We start to consume some of these enterprise progresses that are happening because of 5G, or will start to happen because of 5G. So with that, I'd like to conclude the presentation. I hope this has been useful as a starting point. Like I said earlier, I think I wanted to kind of keep this at a high level so that it kind of serves the purpose for both segments of the audience. One that already understands 5G and is well known to it, but more importantly, those who don't and are curious about what is 5G and what does it bring along. But yeah, like I said, I think as we go through the sessions through the track, we'll definitely bring forth some more topics around 5G that go into a deeper dive into the network. There are some very interesting areas like network slicing, etc., that are cornerstones, and again, sort of beacons of how 5G is going to start growing. So we'll definitely dive into that as we sort of move along. But till then, hopefully this has been helpful.
Thank you very much, Samir. Samir Padye, take over. Hello. Anyway, Anand Ganu here. Samir, Sakpal, can you stop sharing
Can you
your
hear
screen?
me?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Anand, can you hear me?
Yeah, we can hear you, Samir. Go ahead.
Okay, great. Hey, Samir, thank you very much for a very insightful, especially from all the use cases and the opportunities and how it will transform our business segment and also from our personal lives perspective. There are a couple of really good, interesting questions. I'm going to start with Mayur Sarode. Mayur, if you want to ask your question, please go ahead. Mayur? Okay, let me post it. So his question is a really nice one. I liked it. We already have Wi-Fi, and it's a free license. And Wi-Fi actually serve as a high-speed access technology. What makes people would implement 5G, maybe in a home or enterprise, against Wi-Fi, and what will be the impact or comparison between Wi-Fi versus 5G in coming days?
That's a great question. So Wi-Fi has its restrictions in terms of widespread connectivity, especially you have to be dependent on the location of the access points. It is especially in buildings and certain construction materials that are used in buildings today. It's not penetrable. It has restriction in terms of penetration through those materials. So when you're using Wi-Fi, especially on larger applications like manufacturing, large manufacturing plant, or if you look at larger areas such as mining. I keep talking about mining because that's something which is ongoing in my mind with the current discussions we are having, or a power plant. You cannot rely on Wi-Fi. It is good for near field communication. It is definitely a very reliable technology in terms of connectivity when you're looking at smaller spaces, and you're near the access points. But beyond that, you need to have a radio spectrum which is more dependable. I think 5G brings that. There are others as well. I mean, when you look at the US market, if you guys have heard of Citizens Broadband Radio, so CBRS is another application which is unlicensed. It is a cheaper option. A lot of enterprises are looking at CBRS as well to sort of complement 5G. I don't think it replaces 5G, but it certainly will be able to complement 5G in certain areas. So I think that's in my opinion, I think that is where the differentiating value for 5G is. I hope I have answered that to your satisfaction.
Great. Avinash wanted to ask if the current US-China relationship and the challenges that we are facing, would that have any impact in the proliferation of 5G?
It will, and I think I talked about it in the beginning. When I was talking about the timeline of availability of 5G, I think it's taken a bit of a setback because of Huawei and ZTE, or ZTE, which were the key companies involved in the infrastructure building of 5G across the world, have been sort of cornered for various reasons. Whether it is bilateral relations between the US and China, between India and China, and Europe, of course, has also blacklisted Huawei and ZTE for various other reasons of spying and spyware, etc. So it did take things did kind of move back a little bit in terms of availability of 5G. And like I said, Ericsson and Nokia has to kind of pick up on those pieces and start rollouts, which they were not prepared for. So now it is about, I think between Ericsson, Nokia, and Samsung, they are sort of driving the implementation of 5G infrastructure. But yes, certainly it has taken a step back. So the delay is sort of cognizable in terms of them ramping up to deliver the infrastructure. But also in the midst of all of that, I think COVID messed up with the supply chain for a lot of infrastructure to be delivered. And so that's also part of the reason why we are seeing this delay. So yes, the relationships with China definitely are crucial factor in terms of the delay and availability.
Samir, we have seen in the past, I mean, the last 4 different Gs that came out, every region and country has adapted these technologies at different speed. 5G is going to be fundamentally very important for the growth of enterprise sector. Why is not everybody deploying 5G at full speed, and what would be the sort of challenges in getting this technology out too quickly?
Right. So I think there are a few challenges there. Number one is the sunsetting of some of the existing technologies. See, every country has a different build-up in terms of the population. Number one, the population that is serviced by networks. Number two, and what is really running on those networks. When we look at a country like India, we still have 2G and 3G. 2G prominently in some of the parts of India. For carriers to be able to make the capex into spectrum, auctions, which is 5G is a very, very expensive spectrum. And so to be able to make that capex, they have to look at how do we start sunsetting our 2G and 3G to be able to start evolving 5G. Because once they start investing into 5G, they have to think about how do we quickly monetize it. For a country such as India, monetizing 5G, is going to be a difficult thing, especially with with all of the yellow tapeism. So the second factor is definitely going to be all of the yellow tapeism and bureaucracy that goes along with spectrum auctions. So some countries might be faster in terms of their processes to deliver a spectrum to service providers. Others might take it longer, and there might be a lot of yellow tapeism that involves a lot of bureaucracy that's involved, and so it would take longer for some countries. But I think it is definitely going to be a country by country, a different case study for each country, like I said earlier, it's about how quickly can each country start to monetize their or each carrier start to monetize their 5G investments into the spectrum. And that is a key role or a key element that has to be looked at, because, like I said, I think they have to start looking at sunsetting some of their existing spectrums. How fast can they do that? How fast can they ramp up to 5G? How fast can they start monetizing it? All of these things will clearly be different from country to country. So I think that's going to be a key determining factor of how each country launches their 5G.
Great. What's your take on how the edge computing will evolve because of the 5G now, with the higher density, shorter cell sites and very close computing that's happening with 5G? What's your take on the evolution of from the edge computing perspective?
Yeah, so edge computing is going to be a key driver for 5G. Like you rightly said, the network is kind of getting closer to the edge or to the applications. When we let's case in point is a connected car. So to have the network connectivity for a connected car, you need to drive the intelligence to the edge, and so we have to make sure that edge computing sort of is effectively in place for various applications. We talk about healthcare, and that's a critical application that will be driven by 5G. And so edge computing at the edge of the network, closer to the device, more intelligence through edge computing are going to be crucial requirements for running those effectively. One of the other things is also, it's kind of there's going to be a little bit of a shift. I'm not going to say it's going to replace, but there is going to be a shift from cloud towards the edge, and that's one of the key motivators for edge computing to evolve. In terms of moving dependency from whether it's a hybrid cloud environment or a private cloud environment or a public cloud environment, closer to the edge is becoming very, very essential. The other thing I think also from a edge standpoint and edge intelligence standpoint is branch networks. So any kind of industrial verticals that have branches, will adopt edge technology and edge intelligence on their networks, either through SD-WAN or through other deployed networks. Edge computing becomes critical in terms of launching fast, or launching branches fast, and having applications at the branch run more effectively. So yeah, it's critically important for the growth of 5G.
Samir, one question before we go to
question,
yeah, correct.
and then we'll end this.
Then we will invite Ajit Gaukar.
High frequency radiation perspective, any more or any less than 4G or previous technologies?
Can you say that again? I missed the
any
first part of it.
impact from the high frequency radiation perspective, any more or any less compared to like 4G or 3G?
So impact on health,
Human.
you mean? Humans.
Yes.
Yeah. So, honestly, I don't see the impact to be any more, or, there's a lot of hearsay. To be honest, I've not looked into that more deeply. I'm sure there are other people who have, but I don't see, in terms of radiation, having an impact more than what 4G has had, or any less than what 4G has had, if any. So it's something that we'll have to wait and watch, or probably somebody who has done more research into that can answer that better.
Okay.
Great. So, Samir, thank you very much. I think we have lots of other questions, but we are running out of time, and we have to do one more segment. So, Anand,
Sure.
back to you.
Yeah. I'll be happy to answer them offline.
Yeah, thank you, Samir. The rest of the questions will be answered via email, 101%. We had with us very respected guest Ajit Gaukar from London. He teaches at Oxford. Under Garje Marathi banner, he successfully ran one workshop on mentoring in AI. The outcome of that workshop and his future plans, Ajit Gaukar will explain now in next 10 minutes. Over to Sri Ajit Gaukar.
Thank you, Anand, and welcome everybody. So in this very brief presentation, I'm going to share with you what we did for this mentoring program, and this is a new thing for all of us. So we are all learning as well, and I'm very thankful for the opportunity to be given to do this. So as I was introduced, I have a background at teaching at Oxford, AI at Oxford, and I'm also on the board of a few startups, one in Germany, one in the US, and I also have my own consulting background. So I have a kind of an interesting background to help startups, both from a research perspective, also from a commercial perspective. So what we tried to do was thinking that AI is making a big impact to all the countries. And we thought as a social venture, and I think as Dr. Vijay said in the early presentation, that this is all about giving back to society. And this was something I proposed to Anand and Ravi based on the work I'm doing at Oxford. And I'm doing some mentoring for startups in Oxford, and we suggested if we could do the same for Garje Marathi. And this is how this whole program came about. So the scope is very vast for AI, and that is a good thing because almost all industries, as we have seen even in the presentation before, that are impacted by AI. So we kept the area open. We kept the field open to see who comes up with some ideas on how we can implement them. And this was the broad framework we used. So we did a 3-month mentorship program. We worked with a demo, meaning that everybody has to produce a demo within the 3 months. And this was something which we are very keen on, and we work towards that. The next one was we did a 2-week Zoom course, and this has continued from the beginning of the course. And then we wanted to do real AI models, meaning using natural language processing, computer vision, that type of stuff. And then we thought about creating the best practices and tools. And template so that they are able to take this further. And all intellectual property is owned by the startup, meaning that even if I'm contributing some code, which we did with that quite a few times, it is owned by the startup, so that there is a very good incentive for the startups in this group to come and do something about it. So what happened and how did it go? So we were very successful in that, and it's a very initial initiative. So we had some great people who came forward with ideas, farming, personal feedback, fraud detection, anomaly detection, etc. So real good applications. The youngest participant is only 19 years old, and he did a very good demo. And all five of them over the last 3 months, I have been working with them sort of almost middle of June to almost now middle of October. All five of them have a demo, which is great. That means we have successfully did that. It required quite a bit of follow up, and we have learned a lot. And the only thing we could have learned more was I thought we could have had more women participants, and we tried very hard for this. And I think in subsequent versions, we will try and get more female participants into that. In terms of what we are going to do forward, subsequent mentoring programs in Garje Marathi, both for AI and also for any other ventures, any other applications with that. So this is something I hope to share with others as well. And we are intending to invest in our own tools, meaning we're trying to build some kind of a platform so that people are able to sort of take that up rather than starting from zero as we have in the first batch and then go from there. So the next batch we will announce, and Anand will announce it possibly for October when this will finish. The current batch will finish, and then we will kind of launch it in January 2021. So this has been our effort. And very briefly, I will just run through who the participants were. And this is Sanket Kedar, and he has a farming agriculture background. And he came up with this idea of how AI can be used to the call to action to farmers and actually putting sensors in the soil, as we have seen from this picture, and actually giving a message based on humidity and algorithms. So we use the data collected from the sensors, we created an algorithm and gave some feedback, real-time feedback to the farmers. Then there is Shreyas, who is the youngest in the group, and Shreyas came up with a very interesting idea of using artificial intelligence, computer vision on very small devices, which is in the field, in the mining industry, and looking at people are wearing hard hats or not, yellow hats or not. And this is actually a full-fledged edge application, meaning that it does not really need connectivity. So you train the model in the cloud and push it on the edge devices. Then we had Samir and Yuvraj, and they looked at a whole bunch of applications using natural language processing to look at grant applications and detecting fraud and so on and so forth, and tried to predict the success of that. Then we had Amol and Akshay Sakpal, and they talked about how to detect inappropriate feedback in using natural language processing. And finally, we had Sagar, who looked at anomaly detection using Internet of Things. So all of these applications are very complex. They are real code applications. We wrote code. We did work with sensors, and I'm pleased to say that all of them have completed their demos. And over the next few sessions, as decided by Anand, we will possibly have these guys come over and talk to us about how they actually build stuff. So I think finally, I would just like to thank Anand and Ravi for this venture. I think it was a new idea, and it was new for everybody. And I think we have learned something from this, and we will share it not just with the AI group for the future, but also for other mentoring programs within the Garje Marathi platform. So that concludes my talk. Thank you very much. Perfect.
Thanks a lot. Thanks a lot, Ajit. This was an excellent thing, and I'm very glad you did this. And people know the value of Garze Marathi Innovation Academy, what we can deliver, what sort of brain and knowledge wealth Garze Marathi has in form of people like Ajit. So this is our strength. On the same strength, going on in next, I will announce our next webinars. Tomorrow we have developing powerful brand strategies by Datta Nadkarni. Then next week we have how close we are to the COVID vaccine by Dr. Devendra Puntambekar. And Then there is an idea validation as well as idea validation and market sizing by our own Vijay Tadeve. These are the programs which are open for everybody and only exclusively for Garje Marathi members. We have Vijay, Honorable Vijay Gokhale, ex-Foreign Secretary, as well as High Commissioner, ex-High Commissioner and Ambassador to Malaysia, Germany, and China. Vijay Gokhale is going to talk about India's policy in its strategic neighborhood. So we have a line of high value, highly respected speakers. So I request everybody to stay in touch and join our programs. I now hand over mic to Vijay Tadele to say vote of thanks to Samir for his excellent presentation, vote of thanks to Ajit for whatever he has done for Garje Marathi, and end the program. Over to Vijay Tadele.
Thank you, Anandji, and thank you, Samir Paddeji, for moderating this session very nicely. And thank you, Samir Sakpal, for giving a great overview on what 5G has in store for everybody, and how 5G can be really useful in the industry, Industry 4.0, as well as for all industries, how it can be useful and where all it can be applied to. I think that was a great session, very detailed thought through and summary. So basically, it was a 30,000 feet view, but it could give us a lot of experience as to where it all can be used. And thank you, Ajit ji. It was a nice brief overview of how the 5 startups who you supported on AI, at what stage they were and where they what they could achieve. I think it is a proof of pudding that what we are looking forward to in our next year, when we start our mentoring sessions fully for selected startups in the acceleration stage. I think this was a great session, and thank you, Anandji, and the entire Garje Marathi global team for organizing such webinars for the aspiring entrepreneurs. Thank you.
Bye-bye. Let me end the program. Bye, everybody. Thanks a lot. Have a good day. Namaste.
Thank you.